Chapter 1: Faith and Science, Not Enemies. Before we examine the evidence, we need to dispel a myth that has done enormous damage to both science and faith, the myth that they are enemies. This myth has a history. In 1633, Galileo Galilei was brought before the Inquisition and forced to recant his support for the Copernican model, the theory that the Earth moves around the Sun rather than the Sun around the Earth. The Catholic Church declared heliocentrism heretical. Galileo spent the rest of his life under house arrest. This story has been told ever since as the defining encounter between science and religion, the story that proves they are incompatible. But the story is more complicated than the myth. The conflict was as much political as theological. The Pope, Urban VIII, had been Galileo's friend and patron before the crisis. The Copernican model had been discussed by Catholic theologians for 80 years without generating this response. What triggered the Inquisition was partly Galileo's personality. He was confrontational, provocative, and had included the Pope's own words in the mouth of a character called Simpleton in one of his dialogues, and partly the counter-Reformation politics that made the Church feel it could not afford to appear uncertain about anything. More importantly, the great majority of the founders of modern science were devout believers. Copernicus was a Catholic cleric. Johannes Kepler, who discovered the laws of planetary motion, wrote that he was thinking God's thoughts after him. Francis Bacon, who developed the scientific method, believed that a little philosophy inclineth man's mind to atheism, but depth in philosophy bringeth men's minds about to religion. Blaise Pascal, who laid the foundations of probability theory and invented the mechanical calculator, was a profound Christian mystic. Isaac Newton spent more time on biblical prophecy and theology than on physics. Michael Faraday, who discovered electromagnetism, was a deeply committed Christian. Gregor Mendel, the founder of genetics, was an Augustinian friar. The conflict between science and faith is largely a 19th and 20th century construction, promoted by a specific group of scientists, Thomas Huxley and his ex-club in Victorian England, Ernst Haeckel in Germany, who wanted to establish science as an independent cultural authority, free from church influence. Their motivations were as much political as intellectual. They deliberately constructed a narrative of warfare between science and religion that the historical record does not support. What the historical record actually shows is that modern science was largely built by people who believed the universe was the rational creation of a rational God, and who therefore expected it to operate according to consistent, discoverable laws. The conviction that nature was orderly, intelligible, and worth investigating, rather than chaotic, demonic, or inscrutable, was itself a theological conviction that made science possible. The question is not whether faith and science are enemies. They are not. The question is what happens when you apply the rigorous standards of scientific investigation to the claims of Scripture. And the answer, as we are about to see, is surprising.